Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I start our conference? I'm happy to welcome you at the 7th annual conference of the Higher School of Economics devoted to foresight and science, technology, innovation policies. I'm glad that I would like to stress the number of the conference, so it means that it has become a more or less sustainable academic event with some academic and also some professional impact on the discussions we have internationally on these matters. I'm also glad that the impact of this conference has been recognized by our international partners. For example, the OECD Foresight Network mentioned this conference among very few influential events on foresight studies. And the results of one of the previous conferences were recently published in a volume with Springer Publishers with some good dissemination. So if you look at the conference agenda, you will find many keywords which actually form the agenda of policy studies in the academic world, but also at the international organizations and national governments, where the ongoing discussions refer to grand challenges, to new markets emerging with the penetration of new disruptive technologies, then economic, social, environmental, and ethical impacts of new products and technologies, societal issues related to science and technology, new modes of operation in the academic and business communities related to science and technology, the issues like open science, open innovation, responsible science and technology and innovation policies, digitalization of science and technology and of allied policies. So these are all the issues which actually form both the debates and also are reflected in the agenda of this conference. This event is important for our team in particular, since it's a milestone, an annual milestone, where we have an opportunity to report the results of our latest studies and to discuss it with our closest colleagues from different parts of the world. So I am happy that many colleagues of us were able to join this conference, representing major think tanks and research teams from all over the world, from the United States, from Brazil, Japan, France, UK, Germany, and many other, Thailand, many other places. We also have the OECD represented here. Our colleague Mario Cervantes, as a member of our board, also joined us. And as a follow-up to this conference, we're in the process of discussing with the OECD Committee on Science and Technology Policy an event on international science and technology cooperation, which as a possibility will be organized in Moscow in spring. So that will be an additional opportunity to look at the major issues related to science and technology in a broader international audience. So I would like to invite you to be active during these 2 days at the conference, to get engaged in the discussion, raise issues which then will be probably related to our next agenda for the next conference. So we'll be happy to learn from you and to get the feedback. And I'm particularly happy to give a floor to our keynote speaker, Madame Kатрин Брешиньяк, a permanent secretary of the French Academy of Sciences. Please.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I am not an economist at all. I'm a scientist, but we really need the economics for running the world. And so I will try to discuss with you what are the issues, the national and international issues in science, and this, of course, is useful for foresight. So first of all, let's have a definition of science, technology, and innovation. Science is, as everybody knows, I assume, that it's a sum of knowledge that somebody possesses or can acquire through study, reflection, or experience. Technology, this definition is the definition of one of my friends who is in this room. It's François Guénaud, and he said that technology is a coherent set, and this is an interesting definition, of theoretical and practical knowledges, combining scientific knowledge, technical knowledge, and how-know in order to obtain a defined effect. And of course, innovation is to introduce something new in something that has a well-established character and differ from discovery and invention. So these are the definitions. Then let's know in which countries science, not switch to science, in which countries science is done. It's better to say in which part of the world science is done. It's done essentially in Europe, in some places in the United States, in Australia, and of course in Asia. This is something that we have to know before going further. Well, and today, the percentage of GDP that a country attaches to science and technology research is an indicator of the national development. So it's connected to the previous slide. If you look at the GDP, nominal GDP in billions of dollars, and the first one is United States, then the China, Japan, and so on. But if you look at the percentage of the GDP for research and development, public-private funding, the private is brown, except for France that we put everything in red because we are on the red. And then for the public, it's yellow. And you see, and this is the source of OCDE. And you see that, of course, the percentage is of the money which is given by private money is increasing as we go, or decreasing if we go from Israel to Russia. And even more than in Russia, than part of the private money is coming from to public enterprise. Well, now, since 15 years, it's more or less stable between the countries, you see, except for China, which is increasing a lot. Most states between 2 and 3 for the first one. But what's more interesting is to look at the ratio between the public and the private money. And you see that the transition in the States occurs during Reagan presidents around the 80s. Which is not the case in France, because it occurs 15 years later in 1995, and now we are close to funding research 40% public and 60% private. Well, now the question is how to evaluate the research impact. First of all, the result of applied research can be evaluated quantitatively according to specific timelines. But basic research, which is motivated usually by a driven curiosity, cannot always be evaluated in this term. And so they are evaluated in terms of quality of research, which is difficult to interpret, and evaluation can be done on the basis of publication, but now the publication is something which is increasing a lot, and it's difficult to use this evaluation, but also by impact factor, awards, medal, and attractiveness. That is one point which is important, in which countries we can attract good scientists, and of course, all should converge. So let's take one criteria, which can be, for example, the Fields medals. This is interesting because it's a show what's going on. If you look, it's a very small number, but it's very representative of the level of the country. So there is United States, France, and Russia. And if we, after that, we look where do the Fields Medal laureates work after obtaining the award, you see that, for example, the states try to attract the good mathematicians. The French a little bit less, but most of the Russian people, laureates, go in other countries. And this is a point which is important, and this is what we try to do in France, is to essentially try to do what the states are doing, to attract the good scientists. Well, so now how public research organization is done. Science, by definition, is universal, but scientific research depends on the country. So in most of the country, you have three bodies: the universities, the national laboratories or national institutions, and the agencies. And the difference in the countries depend on the interaction between these three bodies and the role of the government. And I will take three examples. The case of the states, Germany and France, those are the cases I know the best. So for the states, for example, the university, there are over 4,000 higher education institutions, but only 100. And two of the third are public, which share 80% of the R&D budget and close to 90% of the doctorates. There are national lab centers of excellence, and furthermore, these agencies have their own institution. And to bring together researchers around priority themes, the federal governments create Center of Excellence and the launch of interdisciplinarity program. The governance of R&D is based on a decentralized system, and there is not, as it is in France, Ministry of Research. The Office of Science and Technology is linked to the White House, and the President Council of Advisor on Science and Technology is in charge of gathering the opinion of academic and industrial sectors. And so there are many think tanks, and as the National Academy of Science, and which give advice and reflection. In the case of Germany, there is 103 universities, and this is the heart of German research system. And the academies and the university are found by the agency, which is the DFG. And they also make some context of excellence, trying to find some criteria, how they can attract also the good scientists all around the world and create elite university. Germany has also 4 research organizations, autonomous, the Max Planck that everybody knows, which is really the highest level that you can have, the Fraunhofer Society oriented to applied research, the Helmholtz Research Centers, for infrastructure, and the Leibniz Association oriented to applied research in regions. But in Germany, the policy of research and innovation defines a high-tech strategy, and which is launched by the federal government. And they promote technology transfer. There is a good link between institutional research and industry to increase the capacity for technological and innovation. In France, it's more centralized. There is a Ministry of Education and now a Ministry of Research. We are now 2 ministries. Before we have only 1, now it's 2, but after that it will be 1. But nevertheless, our ministry was strong, make the strategy, proposing the law, and they decide to have also site of cluster of excellence. I think this is something which is the trend in all around the world, trying to have cluster of excellence, making together scientists and enterprise and technology transfer. And the ministry is a tutor for research and education. So we are also divided in 3 pieces: the institution, like the organism, like CNRS, CEA, and so on; the university; and the private foundation. The agencies, an agency for fundamental research, essentially, the ANR, and one the BPI, for more applied and also innovation. And also there are research credits for the enterprise to reduce the cost in order to stimulate investments. And therefore, we are also structure of cooperation like founding and so on, Carnot and Institut Carnot, but I don't will talk about that, and competitive clusters. Connected to the enterprise, this is one thing that we have to do, and to connect the enterprise with the organism like CNRS University, making joint labs together, and also to connect the enterprise with competitiveness clusters and Institut Carnot. Well, and if you look where the cluster of excellence are in France, among many of them, I think there are only between 10 and 15, which are really at high level. And they bring together a well-identified territory and on a targeted themes, companies, small and large research laboratories and training institutions. And there is national and local government closely associated with the dynamics. This is what we want to do. But the future issues for the science ahead us is biology. If you ask the question to scientific themselves, it's biology, genomics, metagenomics, stem cells, health, one point, nanomaterials, nanostructure, big data, informatics. The two infinite, how we go to the infinity in a very small and very large facilities and Earth system. And we have to make an equilibrium among the discipline. If you look at the genomics, it's a real basic research, which is really very interesting, because if you look at the cell, you have the nucleus in the cell. In the nucleus, you have the chromosome, and in the chromosome, you have the DNA with all the genes. And now what we are able to do is to have genetic scissors, and it's possible to induce mutation. And this one point, which is very important, is to know that the probability to make this mutation, it's occur much if you look at the result by chance, it will be too far and too weak to occur. So by making these genetic scissors, it's possible to have very quickly what we could have for a million years. And so we are now responsible for our own genetics, and this makes that we really need ethic issues. If you look at digital revolution, then there are massive increase in the volume and diversity of data and virtual observatories, and this completely change, and as you know, the speed of the communication. And even more than what we try to want to have, to learn something, we use keywords instead of logical deduction, and it's not the same way to learn. Well, there are also, this is for people when they dream, the two infinite one, it's very large, and you remember that we have seen the two black holes collisional together, and look at the gravitational waves which arrive on the Earth, and now it's possible to have that with neutron stars. And for the very small, it's what we are doing at CERN, and this is something which needs a lot of technology to making this kind of research and to go further to the two infinite. And of course, we have now to try to understand the Earth system. And this is one point that I mentioned with Yuan Li 10 years ago, or even more. That the challenge is to make a complex interaction between all science and the social and humanity sciences. But now the problem is to network the research. So the traditional research system is based on national research organization, and now it's not sufficient anymore to answer most of the question. And how we have to networking research through the World Science Program, how networking the National Research Organization, how to support the development of interaction among researchers, and the role of national and international agencies. And this what we can do, except for the large facilities. What we are doing now is just to exchange scientists between the different parts of the world where science is done. And the competition is now how we can attract the best scientists in your territory. This is the real competition that we have now. But if you look at the three bodies, science, technology, and society, between science, the society does not care about science. I mean, its knowledge is something for dreaming. It's, well, it's for scientists. I mean, these people working in their laboratories, and this is very far away. What they are more interested in is in technology. And if you ask people the question which rise from the society, it's first of all the planet resources, the energy, the transport, the environment, the climate change, the security, the communication, the drugs, and so on. So there are global issues. So how to address these global issues? Because up to now, we were, from our country, working in our research, collaborating together, trying to attract the best. But now it's a problem it's changed. I mean, how to address these global issues? And this, first of all, if you look at, many people are now looking at how to address these global issues. And I mean, everybody is doing that. And so the one from the, the name is coming in French, so it doesn't matter. And so if you look at ONU, I mean that you found that first of all, it's sustainable development and climate change, the clean water, the population resources, the democratization, and so on. If you look at the World Economic Forum, that you are more close to that, the more important are the interconnected trends and which will share the development in the next 10 years. The response is a global risk. The population, the aging of the population, the increasing of also the climate change and so on, and they are also interconnected. But now, if we look at Europe, Europe also makes the hierarchy in the global challenge. They first of all look at more industrial leadership, the nanotechnology, the information, the communication, the space, and so on, and also societal challenges, the health, demographic, and the food security, the clean and efficient energy, the smart green, the transport, and so on. So we also have the hierarchy for the different challenge. And if you look at the different countries, they stress different challenges, and they are not exactly the same. So the European community calls societal challenges, and for which they are adopted for the Horizon 2020. And they are understandably different from global challenges that are defined by the United Nations. Then the US have also their own global challenges. In India and China, they have grand challenges. We are defined as a core, as a national area. In India, the emphasis on the education. In Russia, and we have seen the booklet coming from the president of Russia, and they say that it's a health risk due to anthropic pressure, the environment, the natural resources, the national security, the food safety, and so on. And so the global challenges are hard to solve because the priorities are not the same everywhere. So now the evolution of the global governance structure, like any complex structure change, is not without challenges, and they need to include the reconciliation between the interests of the state and the society and those coming from the scientific community. And such a process should require some change in science policy. So how the policymakers are making the decision, and that depends on the expertise they have. And they choose often the expert and try to have expert without conflicts of interest, which is sometimes not good because those we know are those who are interested and conflict in interest. So it's not, there is a lot of literature in that point. And what we can say is that for policymakers, there are two models of expertise. The one corresponding to what we can call positivist approach, and the other one which is an hybrid forum citizen approach. And there is a big debate between these two approaches since 1990. So we create some structure like EPCC, and now from intergovernmental platform of biodiversity and so on. I'm not sure that it's the best way to do, but it's a way, it's a track on which we are. So one, it's more important in all these things, it's a social acceptability. So if you have the policymaker, first of all, with the scientific expertise in one point and the society values in the other, usually they use to make decisions, something which should be in between the scientific knowledge and the society, and it has been done by media. Well, this is what we had since 10 years. But now the media seems to be disappear, and the social network are coming, and this makes something more difficult for the policymaker to make the decision, and because there are no more a real way to try to combine everything and to make the decision. So we are in this now. It's a part of a point. So I think that first of all, to try to go further, it's better to first to do what Indian people are making first in their challenges. It makes the education in first term, but not education for children, like to learn ABC, but the education all around the world, all around your life, and also to use the new possibilities for education, like we can use like MOOCs. Not only because we also need face-to-face to transmit the knowledge. And if we look at the MOOCs now, they are increasing during a lot, but this is something which is given by Kevin Carey. I think it's a good point that it makes that it changes the education at the university, but the question is not so easy because who is giving the official degrees and how can you get a job with this kind of degrees and also what is the most important for having a job for your life. Well, so I want to thank you for your attention, and this, I say, what a picture that we gave from the Academy of Sciences for the 350 year of our Academy, trying to think together and try to go in the direction for the world should be better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madame Bрешиньяк, for this very questioning presentation and a very good opening for our discussion. We have still some minutes to raise a couple of questions while Madame Bрешиньяк is with us, please. Yes, please.
Good morning. Mario Cervantes from the OECD. I'd like to ask Ms. Bрешиньяk a question regarding her views on international cooperation for global public goods, because we saw in the presentation many countries consider the grand challenge from their national view, their national perspective, especially economic and competitiveness. But how to create the infrastructure for global public goods. I think a lot of research facilities is one way, but in other areas, can we, besides big science, can we have large cooperation for the biodiversity, for example?
This is a point which is not easy because, I mean, science is universal, it's international. But of course, research is done in different countries. And so I don't think it's a real, and for researcher, because we are always moving from one country to another one, it's not so important to know in which place you are, but what is the dynamics of what you are doing. I mean, where do you come from and where you are going? Because and this makes difficulties for making, for example, try to know from where the publications are coming and from which group and who is the leader in the publication. So for large facilities it's easy because for large facilities everybody is going in one place, for example for the CERN or whatever. This is okay. This is simple for making global science. For the other, when you have many sources in different countries and you have to connect them to make some results, this is much more difficult to try to disentangle the issues.
Thank you. Any more questions, please?
Thank you for your inspiring presentation. So, the question is, how do you encourage society to participate in all these processes? Because it's very important to take all the generations on board.
How we can encourage?
Society.
How to engage the society?
The society? Well, as I said, the society is far away from science. One of my questions is that science is cumulative, is going bigger and bigger. The knowledge is going bigger and bigger. And the question, the real problem is if we have the society, most of them, not all of them, but most of them who, for example, if you take the middle of the States, in the United States, I mean, you ask people even where is this, you ask people about one single question of science and they cannot answer. So the gap between those who know and those who do not know, I mean, is increasing a lot as time is going. And if one day the gap is becoming too large, then you can have some break, which can be very, very, for the humanities, it would be a big break. So we have really to try to avoid that. Or how to avoid that? I think it's to explain and to make more communication between the two worlds, the world of scientists and the world and the society, to try to make more as possible some explanation, to make some education and so on. But you know, it's very difficult to talk a language that you don't know a word. I mean, if you do not learn the language, you cannot speak. So if it's the same for the society who are not who do not learn science. So this, I think, it's a big issue that we have to face. And you are right. This is one of the main questions that I think that we will have in the next 50 years.
Please.
First of all, thank you very much for your very inspiring presentation. You showed in your slides that the share of gross expenditures on R&D to GDP is growing, and it's already very high. At the same time, the science as such is broader and broader. More and more fields to research are there. How to select priorities? What do you think to address? Should it be priorities only for some specific thematic areas, or to some instruments, policy instruments, or whatever? Could you please tell about this?
Well, I think that we have to make a sequence of priorities. We need, I think, as part of the early money which is given to science, a small part is given for fundamental research. This one should be protected, but it's not too big. I mean, if you look at, for example, mathematicians, they don't need a lot of money for making. They need time, but not too much money. I mean, they need money, but not, well, this part of, except for the space. The space can be very, the money, you can make a lot of money for space science. But for the rest of science, it's not very large. Now, how you have to divide the money between the priority which are asked by the society, which are far away from the curiosity-driven science, and so this is a real problem. If you ask, for example, the priorities in Africa, they are completely different than the priority for Russia, for example. And so, first of all, the government has to make priority for their own country. And then they should make some priority for the global Earth, and this is really, because I mean, for that you can put a lot of money without no results. So I think that for the priority coming from the society, we have to be more involved in the industrial and in the enterprise, because they are the engine of our society. So the engine in the industry. So we really have to work with them.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we need to turn to the first session, which is devoted to science and technology foresight. We have three presentations in this session, and I would like the presenters to stick to timing. So Ozdčan Saritas is the first one to present a review entitled "The Future of Foresight." So it's the next level of discussion beyond the regular one. Thank you.
No, sit here.
No,
It's okay. No, it's okay. Take like this. It's better.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So it's really a great pleasure to present you in this latest Foresight conference, which is becoming a big tradition at our institute. So at the beginning of the conference, probably, it's a good idea to talk a little bit about foresight, so we come to the same level of understanding, and we actually see how we have evolved with the use and practice of foresight, where we are currently, and then what futures exist for foresight from our perspective. So this is a joint presentation by myself, my colleague Professor Sokolov, and Professor Ian Miles from our institute. Actually, we are still and increasingly concerned about the future. So just to remind why we are concerned about the future is that we have limited resources. We have limited time, we have limited skills, we have limited money, and we are living in a very fast changing world. So we need to use these limited resources as wisely as possible to enable innovation, to think out of the box, to set priorities because we cannot possibly invest in everything at the same time, so we have to make some strategic choices for that, to build some long-term visions, and then to formulate some strategies to get there. Meanwhile, to bring all the different stakeholders together, to link them, to establish some systems so that they can operate with each other. As we live in a very fast-changing world, it's also very important to identify those weak signals of future changes. So what might happen in the future? And wildcards, which we start actually seeing more and more frequently in our lives, those unexpected events which may actually occur at any time and then create big changes. We have seen a number of them through the world, like 21st century wars, disasters, elections, referendums, and every day actually we are operating in a different landscape in the world. So it's very important to make strategic decisions and strategic choices with a long-term perspective. It is actually important to understand what is changing. So this is one of the most frequently slides I use in my presentations, and it is actually still valid in many ways because changes are happening at many different levels in our lives. So our world is changing, society, technology, economy, environment, politics, and culture. So these are not fixed. These are changing on a very fast and on a very daily basis. So we really need to understand how our society is changing, how our economy is changing, how our environment is changing. And we need to kind of understand this dynamic change and develop similar dynamic approaches for this changing context. And there's also the way we look into the future, so which is represented as an internal context in this picture. So it actually is the way we look at things, we perceive things from our points of views. And these points of views are defined by our motivations, behaviors, our own culture, politics, power, and skills, a number of things actually which shape the way we look at the world, we anticipate the future, and then we formulate our actions. So the reflection of this in foresight is in terms of the context where foresight is embedded, and the content, those areas that we choose to focus on. You see that actually these areas are also changing very fast. So we have seen in Katrin's presentation that we are more focusing on biotechnologies, nanotechnologies, and other technologies, but at the same time some more cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary fields like sustainable development, for example, climate change. And we have all sorts of grand challenges to deal with, which require some multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, and sometimes anti-disciplinary approaches. And we change the way we do foresight in line with this. So there's a change in the process and methodology of foresight, which I will talk about a little bit. As I said, first of all, we need to understand the dynamics of the world and how things are changing. So first of all, we increasingly face a growing demand for products and services in the world. But meanwhile, our resources are getting scarce. So we are using more water, more food, more energy, more natural resources. And these are expected to increase 50 to 100% in the next couple of decades. By 2050, we will need 60% of more water, 50% of more food. And how to generate this is our big question and grand challenge. Because the resources are getting limited, so they are gaining more value. So we need to actually invest more in order to obtain them, in order to get them, because they are finite and they are shared. And these are all given rise to problems like sustainability, security, and with all sorts of social, economic, and political consequences. But at the same time, we have opportunities. Like we are going more technological. There are a lot of advancements in science, technology, and innovation, and we are seeing that public and private companies are more and more interested in investing R&D and providing a lot of opportunities for us to address these challenges. So we are not in a hopeless situation. We have actually means to adapt ourselves to these changing situations as we did in the past. If you haven't read the Limits to Growth book, which was written in the 1970s, it was saying that by 2020, actually, we would exhaust all our resources and the humanity would come to an end. But it didn't happen. So we have adapted ourselves to these changing situations, and we will adapt ourselves to future changing situations, but we need to understand their nature and develop proper means of intervening into them. We have in the world, set up a set of ambitious goals for 2030. So these are sustainable development goals, which were agreed and accepted by 173 countries in the world. So if you look at their agenda, they try to address these questions from one or multiple perspectives, because they may have different implications for different countries and different continents, but we have these common and big goals, and they require a lot of work and a lot of advancements. So we are doing foresight within this sort of context, where we have a lot of pressures, a lot of constraints, challenges, and at the same time, a lot of possibilities. Foresight, actually, within this context, has evolved over time. So I try to generate some kind of a timeline of how foresight is changing, because the foresight is changing as the world changes, and the world changes as foresight provides some new tools and techniques. So it is not actually by coincidence that every decade almost we have seen some changes and advancements in the way we do foresight. First of all, foresight is in our nature. So we actually have this, we do it, the act of anticipation is part of our characteristic as humans. But doing this in a kind of a more institutional way is a later practice. So we started using our collective intelligence, collective way of looking into the future, and institutionalized this sort of activity starting from the 50s, and we added different features into that. So we started bringing some experts together. They were looking into the future of technology, but later, for example, in the 70s, we realized that there are economic concerns also in the world. So it's not only the technology. We should focus on the economy at the same time. And we are living in a more uncertain and more complex world which cannot be predicted. As we moved to the 80s, for example, we started seeing the use of innovation systems, because we realized that actually it's not only one actor's initiative to make change happen. So we need to bring actors and stakeholders and different parties together. So that's why we started talking about innovation systems, participatory approaches, inclusive approaches, and not only to obtain some reports looking into the future, but also doing this through some mutual learning and collective visioning processes where all actors and stakeholders come together and build a common future. And then we started seeing that this tool of foresight has been accepted and widely used by governments, for example, industry and other organizations. It has been accepted as a formal way of formulating policies. And then as we came to 2000s, we started seeing that we should also include society. Society is a big player, big partner, not only on the demand side, but also there's an important element of innovation from the social side. And then we started focusing on grand challenges with the increasing likelihood of all sorts of wildcards. We started seeing that it is not only to develop visions for the next 20, 30 years, because actually any strategies we develop change a lot on the way. So we need to have more dynamic and adaptive foresight approaches, because the context is continuously changing, and we need to adapt our strategies within this changing context. A government is changing, for example, and the new government is not committed to sustainable development as the previous one, but we still have these big expectations, sustainable development goals, so what to do with that? So we need to have more dynamic and adaptive strategies by counting these immediate changes, unexpected changes, and develop some more resilient approaches. And in the future, we see that there are exciting developments, all sorts of artificial intelligence, machines, robots, and then integrated use with humans. So we need to actually count these developments also in the way we think about the future and formulate the future. We have a number of tools we use for foresight methods. So you see that at the beginning, in the early 90s, we were using one or two methods in foresight, but our methodological toolbox has really expanded a lot. Now we are using over 50 methods actually in foresight, and we are integrating them in all different ways. So we are using some methods to understand the world, understand this change, and then explore futures, prioritize areas, and develop strategies. So we started using some more and more integrated and multi-approach processes in foresight. So in our recent work with Alexander Sokolov and Ian Miles, we have actually suggested a process, a kind of a framework for foresight. This is not looking or saying like anything about the domains where foresight is applied, because foresight is simply applied everywhere. And this is focusing mainly on the core functions and core phases of thinking about the future. It all begins with the initiation of the activity and gathering intelligence about our current state and our futures. This is through scanning, environmental scanning, horizon scanning, to understand actually the world we operate in. There's the imaginative and creative part where we expand our points of views and we try to kind of explore futures. And then there's the vision building phase, which is about the integration, and the interpretation phase, which is about developing strategies to achieve those visions. So translating these visions into strategies, long, medium, and short terms. And then intervention is making things happen from today. So if we don't start from today, it will be too late. If you develop some kind of a roadmap between now and the future, you will see that we don't have a lot of time and we need to act very soon and from today. Then we do an impact assessment of what we are doing, what we have been doing, and as a part of this dynamic and adaptive approach, we need to change our approaches, sometimes revise our visions, sometimes revise the way we do things. So there's a very important phase of impact assessment. And all this process happens in an interactive process with the engagement of all stakeholders. So these are like 7+1 eyes of foresight. We use a number of methods for different phases of this activity. So you see that our methodological toolbox is again very big, and new methods can be added into this process at any time. We can be very creative about adding methods and then integrating them with each other and then using different sources, processing them in different ways. So these are some suggested methods which can be grouped in various ways, like some processes of foresight activity, some quantitative methods or semi-quantitative methods, and then some qualitative methods. So some of these methods could be performed by some machines, the others can be performed by humans, and we try to actually bring this two together. And we will have more means of achieving this. So there are so many different technologies developing. We can see that actually for each of the phases of foresight, we can use these developing technologies. So if you look at how foresight was performed actually in the inner circle, so we used to bring some experts together around the table. We read some of the literature. We used our flip charts, 3 Ps of foresight. pen, poster, and post-its. So we are still using actually this, but we have some other tools and more advanced tools to improve our foresight. So you can see that we are now moving. We are moving out. And we can already analyze large amounts of data and visualize and represent them in various ways. So this increases our evidence for foresight. So we are not only dependent on a group of experts, which could be biased or which could be limited and things, but big data opened us a lot of new opportunities, for example, gathering and analyzing data. We have all sorts of social networking tools, for example, that we can engage society, people, different stakeholders on a real-time basis. We can really collect their opinion and then analyze these opinions. And in the near future, we'll have all sorts of different methods like blockchain, for example, which could be used for decision-making and in terms of enabling participation and verifying information and then distributing this to large amount of stakeholders. So there are a lot of possibilities there. And we have new means of processing this data. We have more use of artificial intelligence, and Professor Honoral, for example, will tell later about how she actually develops in her lab some brain-to-brain communication systems, which would actually bring us all sorts of new opportunities in terms of communicating with each other and then creating the future together in a much more interactive way. What is interesting in all these pictures is that if you look at outside to the edges of the picture, you see that we are going to a network society. We are networking people, we are networking satellites, sensors, we are networking machines, we are actually networking humans and machines together. So there's the Internet of Things, for example, technology, but we are moving into Internet of Everything because there will be possibilities to integrate human brain into these systems at the same time. And we are going into a more and more connected society and connected technologies. And society and technologies will also be connected. So we need to understand and manage the dynamics of this network society. And this will give us a lot of possibilities in the way we do and practice foresight. So we will be able to use, for example, these are the near-term developments. Social media and online, for example, participation. We will be able to engage different stakeholders. We will be able to gather data by using data mining and then find some new ways of eliciting information and knowledge, new ways of interacting with people and environment, not only probably only with humans, but also with machines and other living species we will be able to communicate because they will also be represented in our future projections. And we have new tools for modeling behaviors and then testing and understanding and adding the element of shocks and surprises into the system and looking at their consequences for the future. And there are more and more possibilities in terms of we present and visualize data. We share it with everybody, not only in written reports or text, but also by using all sorts of other media, as you can imagine. So there are a lot of new possibilities and new technologies in there. And also there are a lot of possibilities for monitoring change, because our aim is actually to change things, because we are not satisfied and we want to make them better, and we need to be able to see whether our decisions and strategies are making any change on our societies, on our environment, and we have continuously new monitoring technologies to observe this change. I will just give an example on a system that we have been developing in our institute, which is actually very much advanced now. So I will just give examples on how we make use of data, for example, now for our foresight activities. First of all, we need to understand that data is our major asset. Data is everywhere, all over the place. So data is in scientific publications, data is in patents, data is in a large number of reports and forecasts provided by a number of organizations, in conferences, news, experts, and at the same time, data is where funding is, for example. Data can be where the stock exchange is, or mergers and acquisitions. This, again, came into our agenda as we had some conversations. One of the best ways of understanding the future developments is to look at where the money is going, for example. Because if money is going into a certain direction or a certain technology, we may expect that some research will start and then we will generate some outputs which will start changing our lives. So it's always a good idea for that reason to look at funding, for example, where money is going. And which companies are becoming, for example, more valuable in the stock exchange. And which companies are buying which other companies. So why, for example, Google is investing in health, why Apple is investing in home technologies, why Amazon is going into food business. So there are actually all sorts of reasons for these companies going into these areas. We will see some consequences of this in the near future. So these are very useful source of information for us to look at. And we developed some quantitative and qualitative ways of using and analyzing this data, and I created our intelligence foresight analytics system, which we call as IFORA. So IFORA produces a number of results, so I will quickly show some examples of them. So you can see that we can map science and technology developments in different domains, and how dynamically actually these domains are changing and developing, going up or down. So you can see the case of energy, how solar cells are, for example, developing, how fuel cells are developing in a kind of more stable way, how fossil fuels are developing. So we can see actually where the research is going in these areas. So the dynamics of science and technology. We can see how the structural changes in science and technology take place. So if you look at the case of solar energy, you can see that this area is getting really wide and getting really big. And then there are some new areas emerging through the convergence of different fields or through the divergence of them. So this is kind of showing those scientific clusters under the area of the solar energy. So you see that actually it is getting really lively and really wide compared to only 5 years ago. So you can see how progressed actually the field, the scientific field of solar energy through 5 years. We can look at the dynamics of this change in terms of trends. So we can look at how, for example, frequently some terminologies are appearing, and we can see in the dynamics how fast they are growing. So if an area is fast and frequent, then we consider them as the main drivers of science and technology, like lithium-ion battery and graphene nanosheet, for example. And we can also map some of those mature areas. We can see some of those areas which are very fastly, rapidly increasing, but their occurrence intensity is low at the moment, and they can tell us some future weak signals. So we can see actually some more mentions and reference to those areas, or they may disappear, but they are definitely worth looking at. So we can do this sort of analysis with data. One of the important outputs of the system is also to bring different domains together and looking at the intersections between them. For example, in the case of medicine, there's you can see technological developments and diseases. We can see which technologies can be used to respond to what sorts of diseases. So we can actually match this and see how, for example, obesity can be tackled with through preventive medicine, how breast cancer actually could be dealt with DNA sequencing, genetic engineering, nuclear medicine, and preventive medicine technologies. So we can actually see which technologies can be used to respond to what sorts of diseases. And again, I told already that grants are very important to look at, for example, and not only the grants, but how grants are translated into some research articles, after that some patents in terms of some products and services and technologies, and how they find their way into professional media to penetrate more into our lives. This is also a very valuable analysis in terms of showing, for example, machine learning. We see that grants are bigger. So the blue bubbles are showing these grants. So, and we see that actually there are some investments into this area. And in time, we started seeing over years, over 10 years, that this started finding more patents and then more place in media. So this is actually growing. And grants in this area still continue to be high. So we can see that actually this area will stay on the agenda for a while more. And this life cycle of science and technology areas actually tell a lot about the emergence of technologies and then their use, and which technologies actually might still stay in our radar for the next decade or two. We can see which science and technologies are in hypes or whether they are real. So sometimes we see a lot of mention of technologies in media, but they are not actually mentioned in any articles or patents. So we try to understand if there's one technology mentioned frequently in media, but has no article or patent related to that, so that's very likely that this could be a hype because it's not supported by research. But at the same time, there are some areas which find a lot of mention in media, but at the same time supported by some articles and patents. So we may expect that actually there will be some more developments, and these are the promising areas. And there are some other areas where there are articles and patents, but there is no yet public awareness in media. So this will be some emerging areas which will find their ways later in our lives and will appear probably more in media at some point. And we can similarly do some kind of market assessments and do some forecasts, intelligent forecasts for the future, so we can try to look at the margins of, for example, markets or technologies, and we can have some kind of estimations which can show the limits. So the real picture probably will be somewhere in between. And one of the latest actually points that we have reached the production, automated production of reports. So which may be a technology which can make us jobless soon. So because we can now already bring some inputs together from all these processes and already summarize and present them in some text format. So this is already possible. I would like to conclude with the second mission of Foresight. So Foresight is not only about looking into the future. Foresight is also about analyzing wider impacts of technological and social change. Because all these technologies and changes and transformations will have some positive and negative implications for our lives. And one task of Foresight is actually to anticipate what sorts of changes these new technologies and developments might bring. So this is a poster which I had prepared with my colleague from Manchester, Dennis Lowridge, showing the connection between systems, foresight, and law. So we need to develop some law regulations before actually things occur or break out in a kind of more anticipatory fashion. So foresight is relevant to law and then regulation and standard making at the same time. And especially in a fast developing world, we need to anticipate those changes and implications in advance to make this system working without actually damaging our people and society. So we already see some signals that all of us looking into some kind of a device when we are on the street or in the metro, and very low kind of social interaction, and people are spending a lot of times for playing games and other things. So there are already some alarming actually developments for our society. So one of our jobs should be to anticipate this change and then take actions before it creates any harm. This happened in previous, for example, industrial revolutions. Industrial revolutions, yes, brought a lot of possibilities and opportunities for us, but at the same time created a lot of damages. For example, first industrial revolution, you can see slum days and many ill and suffered children. Second industrial revolution brought a lot of opportunities in terms of technologies, but at the same time created a lot of destruction in our lives. Third industrial revolution created all these big and enormous cities in the world with a lot of stress on natural resource and demographic change. And the fourth industrial revolution may bring some other consequences. So this is like a one day in the future, in Futurama, where there's a conflict between humans and robots and artificial intelligence. Elon Musk recently said that the third actual world war would be between artificial intelligence and human. So it is probably a good idea to start thinking about the technologies and consequences and then their developments and then what kind of impacts they may have for the future. There are also some unexpected consequences. For example, this security robot, which was considered to be better than a human guard because it never gets bored of its job. But we saw that actually at some point he suicided. So robots can also suicide. So this is an unexpected consequence of technology that we need to think about. So with this slide, I would like to finish my presentation. I also would like to give several references which you might be interested in reading. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ozdchan. We still have a couple of minutes for questions and answers. If there are any, please. Yes, please.
I have Nick Van Ortes from the George Washington University. Thank you, Ozdchan, for this very impressive presentation. I am a big fan of your work. One question. How robust are our analytical capabilities for this data? In the sense, are the pictures that you get out of this big data robust? Or I could understand different things than you from the same picture?
Actually, it is both. So there is a very reasonable level of validity of this information, because we can really analyze this data and then analyze this text and create this kind of visualizations, and they are very much reliable in many ways. So I would say that they are not complete. They are not like 100% truth of science or markets or anything like that, but they give us a good idea. And at the same time, they serve in the way that they don't give a kind of precise facts, but they give us some possibility for imagination and creativity. So I think I personally consider that it is very valuable that we understand different things when we look at these pictures. So when we bring these ideas together, then we can explore different and more innovative futures. Sure.
May I just say,
yes.
That's exactly the correct answer, because I think I asked the question because I think many people take this as being to predict the future. It does not predict the future,
yes.
Right?
No.
But it creates discussion.
Exactly.
So that we are better prepared for the future.
Yes.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thanks for making this very important point.
Thank you very much. So I would like to give a floor to our next speaker, which is Professor Shigeharo Kato, the director of NISTEP, the National Institute of Science and Technology Policy in Japan, which is actually the mother of foresight studies and of many methodologies we still use for the evidence-based policy making in science and technology. Please.
Thank you for kind introduction, Professor Gохберg. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shigeharu Kato, and Director General of National Institute of Science and Technology Policy, NISTEP. And I took office of the Director General of the Institute April this year, so naturally, this is my first appearance in this conference, but only listening to another discussion. It's a very exciting conference and high quality, I think. And on this occasion, I'd like to offer my hearty congratulations to the 25th anniversary of Higher School of Economics and the 15th anniversary of the Institute of Statistical Studies and Economics of Knowledge. My institute has enjoyed a good cooperative relationship with ISEC. We started the relationship when Dr. Kuniko Urashima, an expert on foresight in NISTEP over there, was invited to by ISEC in autumn 2013. And in the following year, Professor Gохберg visited our institute, and the memorandum of cooperation was signed between the two institutes. Since then, both institutes have exchanged information and researchers frequently. While Kuniko has been one of the regular participants of this international conference, NISTEP has welcomed visiting researchers from ISEC. And meanwhile, our MOC has been renewed February this year for the duration of further 3 years. Today, I will give you a short introduction of Japan's STI policy, especially recent transition of policy orientation. And the second, about short introduction about NISTEP, including a specific example of our contribution to evidence-based STI policy making. And finally, I want to share with you, for your consideration, some of my thoughts on new era of science, technology, and innovation policy, and the role of foresight in that context. So please let me make some addition for myself. I'm now director of a research institute, but in my career of government official, nearly 40 years, mostly I was working on policy making and program development and management of research institute. So last part maybe much depend on my own experience. So the first part. In Japan, government has developed a 5-year science and technology basic plan since 1996. The government is mandated by the basic law for science and technology to prepare the plan to ensure comprehensive and strategic implementation of various policy measures to promote science and technology. The first plan focused mainly on expansion of scientific research capacity and science-driven technology transfer. It addressed human resource issues, especially those of young researchers, expansion of competitive funding for research, and the development of research facilities and infrastructure. In the second and third plans, in addition to expansion of scientific research base, notion came about. And that is to allocate more money in strategically important research and development field. The fourth plan was decided in August 2011. it announced that science and technology policy and innovation policy was integrated in the plan for the first time. However, research and development and societal installation in addressing the three clear and present challenges at the time of Japan were prioritized as innovation. The national challenges were aging population, scarce clean energy resources, and restoration from the East Japan earthquake and tsunami. The latest fifth plan, like its predecessors, addresses expansion of scientific research base and identifies scientific research area to cope with national and societal challenges. However, in addition to that, it has introduced a new concept to create a new society, Society 5.0, through innovation. Society 5.0 is defined as the result of successive development of society. Society 1.0, hunting society, 2.0, agrarian, 3.0, industrial, and 4.0, information. Society 5.0 is characterized as the inclusive, vibrant society where individuals' various needs are differentiated and met as necessary. By merging real world and cyberspace by ICT. To facilitate innovation to create such a society, the plan urges to establish global open innovation system and virtuous sustainable cycle of human resources, financial resources, and knowledge. This is a large transition from previous 5 plans, and it appears to me the plan capitalizes on transformative power of new technology and innovation to rapidly change society and economy. Next to NISTEP, about NISTEP. NISTEP is a public STI policy think tank attached to the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology. And it was established in 1988, so it will be 30 years old next year. Its mission is to provide governmental ministries and research and higher education institutes with evidence and future vision to support them in working on PDCA cycle of STI policy and programs. Size of NISTEP staff is 45, so it is rather small. However, I'm proud that each NISTEP staff is capable of their job and always seek quality. Its annual budget is about 800 million yen, so about $7 million annually. And there are 4 kinds of major research activities. First, analysis of science and technology activities using science metrics and benchmarkings. Second, analysis of innovation process. Third, science of STI policy. And fourth, science and technology foresight. Here, I want to present some specific examples of evidence which NISTEP provides for the use by national STI policy makers and executives and managers of research institute. The first one is the so-called Taiten survey, continuous monitoring of the progress of science and technology basic plan. One of the characteristics of the survey is to ask the same set of questions every year to the same respondents, hence avoiding bias by shifting composition of respondents group and set of questions. Taiten is the Japanese word meaning a fixed location. The latest round of survey is directed to the 5th plan, and some 3,000 respondents are enlisted from top managers to young researchers in universities and public research institutes, and from those working in business on collaboration with academia. Here are some examples of our survey results for the last basic plan over the 5 years. The flexibility in the most popular research grant got the highest in upward change in satisfactory score to reach excellent level. On the other hand, line funding for universities and national research institutes and the number of qualified PhD candidates got large score down, and their satisfactory level is poor. These observations have been duly considered in the development of the latest basic plan. Second example is the science map. This is a scientometric approach for mapping hot research areas of the world by cross-citation analysis of top 1% papers. The latest version, 2014, identified more than 800 hot research areas attracting high international attention. The map also indicates emergence of new scientific concepts and specific communities of researchers working on them. The map has been utilized by Japan Science and Technology Agency, JST, in identifying strategic research areas for their funding programs. The map is also useful to institutional research people in universities and research institutes. NISTEP has further provided some evidence which induced serious consideration among policymakers. This one illustrates development of international co-authorship. The wider the line between two circles means that more papers are co-authored by researchers of the two countries. In 10 years, lines have become wider in general, meaning international co-authorship has been developed worldwide. However, lines around Japan has not, implying Japan has been left behind the development of a global research network. Therefore, the fifth basic plan sets it as an urgent issue for Japanese science community to enhance its presence in international research network. This one illustrates demographic transition of faculty in 11 top research universities of Japan. Young faculty has been increased, but most of them were employed on fixed-term contract. It has been pointed out that this has made it less attractive for undergraduate students to enter doctor's courses. The fifth one insists that the universities and public research institutes must increase tenured posts for seasoned young researchers having enough experiences as postdocs. Now, let me share with you some of my thoughts on future design of STI policy and the role of STI think tank, including foresight. In view of enormous transformative power of new technology and innovation, as my previous speakers mentioned, it will no longer be the ultimate objective of STI policy to expand scientific research base. Rather, STI policymakers' responsibility would be to navigate construction, modification, and operation of the STI system so that the society be transformed as people benefit. In this connection, we need to deepen our understanding on the dynamic two-way interaction between innovation and technology on the one hand, and the society and the economy on the other hand. future society will be influenced by technological development and innovation. But at the same time, we have to seriously think about how we want to or should change society. This question will not be answered by just collecting experts' views, but only by painstaking deliberations involving various stakeholders. This process is important to enable policymakers to make informed decisions. Only based on these building blocks, we could prepare policy measures and roadmap to realize desirable societal transformation. Because of ever-increasing interconnectedness in this globe, future vision exercise, although it's national or local, must be undertaken with the global and regional context in mind. That's why I want to underline the importance of global and regional collaboration in foresight. And I think this conference is one of the important vehicles for that kind of collaboration. And the NISTEP will hold international conference on foresight later at the end of November, which Kuniko will mention in detail later. STI policy was traditionally about expansion of scientific research base, but now it is becoming vision-driven, as I mentioned. Still, expansion of scientific research capacity is an important part of STI policy. And a vibrant reservoir of new scientific knowledge is an essential prerequisite for innovation. Especially, it will always be most important thing in STI system to enable young researchers and entrepreneurs to try every idea, to become independent thinkers and doers, to innovate and change society as we wish. STI policymakers will be responsible not only to scientists and engineers, but also to people of your country and the world, today and tomorrow. In this connection, foresight and specific policy making how we address the sustainable development goals will become an important issue. SDGs have been prepared as the common agenda for every country. Although specific pathways to realize the SDGs may be local or national, common recognition of sustainability and inclusive approach to innovation have to be shared globally. Finally, let me tell you my insight into STI think tanks' roles in evidence-based, vision-driven policy development. First, STI think tanks have to collect evidence on performance of STI policy and programs. In this connection, we need more efforts in integrating individual evidence to elucidate performance of a whole STI policy mix and national STI system. At the same time, we have to capture early indication of transformative technology and innovation and assess possible its societal transformation. This has become even more important in view of enormous transformative power of innovation and new technology. And as foresight activity has become more oriented to future societal vision as well as future technology, it would be essential to involve multitude of stakeholders and to provide a good platform for the vision making and the sharing would be STI think tank's important role. In concluding, I'd like to repeat that STI policy has to be responsible not only to present generation, but also to the future generation, sustainability of our society, and civilization of mankind. And I want to underline the importance of young people's involvement and active participation in this process. At the end of the day, future is theirs. So, on behalf of all the staff of NISTEP, thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Kato. We have a space for one question, please. Jonathan, please. The micro. No. Yes, the button.
Thank you very much for the very interesting question. My name is Jonathan Linton. I'm the head of lab for the Science Technology Studies Lab here at the Higher School of Economics. And I'm curious if Japan is also looking at innovation from the social sciences and arts as well as science and technology.
Well, thank you very much for important question. And actually, innovation has been considered in the context of industrial competitiveness. But recently, especially in the fifth plan, new societal vision was put forward, Society 5.0, and it would be realized through innovation. So now, innovation has, of course, societal dimensions, and to realize new society, of course, social science and arts plays a very important role. So we need some, comprehensive manner to work on innovation, not only natural science and engineering, but also social scientists and artists, maybe artists, can play a very important role in designing innovation or designing future society.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So our next speaker is Alexandr Chulok, the Foresight Center of the Higher School of Economics.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Я рад вас приветствовать на нашей конференции. Спасибо организаторам за честь выступать последним, закрывающим эту первую важную сессию. Я хотел бы рассказать о тех принципах, может быть, уроках, которые мы видим со стороны российского форсайта, потому что он действительно стал уже обширный. Здесь мы находимся в тренде, может быть, где-то являемся даже трендмейкерами, поэтому я надеюсь, что эти соображения будут вам полезны. Но сначала мне хотелось бы рассказать несколько соображений о том, каким образом нам видится проблематика форсайта и почему он действительно так активно используется для формирования научно-технической политики. Действительно, сейчас научно-техническая политика сталкивается с рядом очень серьезных вызовов, в первую очередь обусловленных ограниченностью ресурсов. Это не только деньги, это в первую очередь время и компетенция. И одна из проблем, с которой нам предстоит всем работать, это поиск баланса между тем, как мы поддерживаем проекты и как мы обеспечиваем институциональную память этих проектов и их дальнейшее использование в всей экономической экосреде и ландшафте. Здесь, конечно, важны и инфраструктурные моменты, связанные с правами на интеллектуальную собственность, и бизнес-климат, и обеспечение мобильности, и, конечно, поиск, то, что называется, умного набора политических инструментов, который позволил бы с этими вызовами справляться. Уже десятилетия в качестве такого умного набора используется форсайт. И даже наша конференция, уже ставшая традиционной и ежегодной, показывает, что интерес к этому инструменту не спадает. Чего же от нас ждут лица, принимающие решения? В первую очередь, конечно, это переход на научно обоснованную базу. Открытую, понятную, воспроизводимую научно обоснованную базу результатов. Безусловно, одним из ключевых вопросов становится вопрос, что если? Что произойдет, если мы примем те или иные решения? Это нелинейная сценарная логика. Конечно, отдельно лица, принимающие решения, обеспокоены то, что называется слабыми сигналами или джокерами. С математической точки зрения, то, что находится на хвостах нормального распределения. Ну, естественно, выбор приоритетов. Что, как и каким образом поддерживать. С этой точки зрения, конечно, инструментарий существенным образом усилился за последнее время. Инструментарий форсайта – это междисциплинарные исследования, это интеграция количественных качественных методов, это, конечно, большие данные, о чем, наверное, сегодня ни одна серьезная площадка не может не говорить. Это вовлечение стейкхолдеров, это сети, коммуникация. Но давайте попробуем сделать еще один ход и посмотреть несколько глубже. А сам форсайт с какими вызовами сталкивается? Какие проблемы вот этот спрос со стороны лиц, принимающих решения, генерирует для форсайта? И здесь мы видим, что история далеко не однозначная. По каким направлениям развивать форсайт? Нам действительно нужна новая повестка. Но где она должна лежать? В области креативности, новых идей, в футурологии, в вдохновлении, или в области более углубленных моделей, перехода на действительно комплексные инструменты форсайта и выстраивания многоходовок от макроуровня к мезо- и микроуровню. С другой стороны, мы должны понимать, что форсайт должен ориентироваться на нужды стейкхолдеров, но они тоже меняются, динамически меняются. Сейчас очень много говорится про общество. Как общество позиционируется, как мы удовлетворяем требования общества. Общество 5.0 или 6.0, где-то, может быть, еще и первобытное сохранилось. Но, тем не менее, мы ориентируемся на общество, но не надо забывать и про бизнес. Бизнес тоже находится в поиске новых источников конкурентоспособности. Это не только инновации, которые давно уже хорошо изучены. Это, конечно, и новые модели, собственно говоря, бизнес-процессов. И как будет выглядеть бизнес будущего – большой серьезный вопрос. Вот исходя из вот этих вот неоднозначностей и противоречивых вопросов, я хотел бы дальше построить свой доклад. В России термин «форсайт» растет каждый год. Вот я обновляю эту картинку слева от вас 2 раза в год, и вы видите, что интенсивность публикаций по теме форсайта растет неуклонными темпами. Более того, если мы применим методы семантического анализа и посмотрим ключевые стратегические документы в области науки, технологий, инноваций, промышленности в России, то увидим очень интересные вещи. Да, действительно, мы говорим про деньги, мы говорим про возможности, это наиболее крупные такие термины, слова. Мы говорим про интеграцию в мировые цепочки создания добавленной стоимости, но мы совсем чуть-чуть говорим про то, как это сделать, какими инструментами, какие сектора поддерживать. И здесь, конечно, встает вопрос о том, на каком поле мы играем. Мне хотелось бы, чтобы мы немножко поднялись от использования и изучения методов, это, безусловно, важно, я об этом тоже скажу, к постановке, но, если хотите, таких принципиальных философских вопросов, потому что без базы, без понимания, к чему мы стремимся, конечно, никакие методы, даже самые современные, не будут для нас удовлетворительны. И здесь, в России, если мы говорим про взгляд с нашей точки зрения, конечно, идет большой уклон в сторону экспертных методов. Вот коллеги из Японии являются, наверное, самыми продвинутыми по знанию экспертных методов, но для нас это такая активная история, которая имеет очень большие ограничения. Как вы используете экспертов? Какие? Возьмите других экспертов, у вас будут другие результаты. Как вы с ними работаете? И если мы полагаемся только на экспертные методы, то, конечно, наши форсайты будут явно перекошены и смещены в одну сторону. С другой стороны, если мы попытаемся сделать ставку на моделирование, и сейчас мы видим новый виток интереса к моделям, то, конечно, это будет перекос в другую сторону, потому что ни одна модель не может объяснить всю реальность. Мы видим, что Нобелевские премии в экономике мы получаем за отказ от только некоторых базовых предпосылок экономических моделей, на которых мы выросли. И самое страшное заключается в том, что управленческие практики, если хотите, управленческая культура была основана на тех моделях, которые давным-давно уже не работают. Поэтому при всем уважении и необходимости, конечно, использовать модели, у нас в институте несколько центров, которые занимаются моделированием, нужно понимать их ограничения, которые в том числе связаны с классификаторами и статистикой, потому что мир меняется настолько быстро, что современные классификаторы просто могут в них не укладываться. И здесь мы должны говорить о новых подходах, в том числе к статистике науки, технологий, инноваций. Наверное, третья группа методов, которая самая будоражущая и активно использующаяся в форсайте, это футурология. Мы обязательно должны ее использовать и прислушиваться к футурологам, но всегда должны возвращать их обратно на научно обоснованную базу. Потому что даже если мы возьмем прогнозы гениев, встает вопрос, а что стоит за этими прогнозами и можем ли мы им доверять? Мы можем привести сотни высказываний великих людей, начиная от Эйнштейна и заканчивая многими менеджерами крупных компаний, которые ошибались кардинальным образом. Например, говорили, что мировой рынок компьютеров будет всего 5-6 единиц, или о том, что мировой спрос на автомобили будет всего 5000 автомобилей, потому что не будет достаточного количества шоферов. Гении ошибаются. Но при этом, конечно, надо прислушиваться к этой группе методов. Ответ очевиден. Для устойчивого научно обоснованного форсайта надо использовать все группы методов и, конечно, обеспечивать между ними взаимодействие. Но самая суть, самое мастерство заключается в том, как эти методы скомбинировать в зависимости от целей, задач, ресурсов и, в конечном счете, ожиданий стейкхолдеров. И здесь очень важно выстраивать четкие, жесткие правила и требования к форсайту, потому что если мы не будем говорить о некоторых базовых наборах, связанных с качеством наших форсайт-исследований, то дальше по экспоненте они будут разрастаться, и уже очень сложно будет доказать, что это действительно правда, а не какой-то вымысел или газетный заголовок. Потому что мы видим, что информационные, если хотите, войны во многом сейчас уже переходят и в гражданские сферы, и мы должны, конечно, от этого тоже как-то отталкиваться. Вот, используя нашу систему интеллектуального анализа больших данных, IFOR, коллеги об этом уже говорили, мы еще будем об этом говорить, мы составили семантическую карту форсайтов на основе более чем 3000 статей за почти 10-летний период. И мне она кажется достаточно любопытным, потому что, с одной стороны, крупные кластеры концентрируются вокруг определенных методов форсайта, это и кейс-стадии, и сценарий, и стратегический форсайт. А с другой стороны мы видим, и Дельфи-метод, безусловно, а с другой стороны мы видим те области форсайта, которые в наиболее активном находятся состоянии. Это изменение климата, это и телекоммуникации. То есть мы можем говорить действительно о глубоком проникновении форсайта в определенные области, но если вы присмотритесь к этой карте, то областей для развития форсайт-методов еще, конечно, очень много, и кластерный семантический анализ об этом говорит. Я пропущу, наверное, слайд про вот эту нашу систему IFOR, я покажу некоторые еще результаты, потому что мне кажется, что использование больших данных является одним из очень интересных трендов, мы не можем его обойти, но мы должны понимать его ограничения. Мы говорим о больших вызовах уже достаточно давно. Наверное, полуфилософский вопрос, можем ли мы управлять большими вызовами, или мы можем только подстраиваться под них. Но я хотел бы обратить ваше внимание, что вопрос не в том, чтобы их идентифицировать. Они уже давно известны. Вопрос в том, насколько мы их можем использовать и как умело мы это делаем. Мы можем говорить про 20, 30, 15, сотни больших вызовов, но в конечном счете объективная реальность показывает нам то, что компании, которые эти вызовы используют, пока что находятся в лидерах. Это свежая картинка Forbes 2017 года, и мы видим, что по маржинальности те компании, которые делают ставку на большие вызовы, это круг внутри большего круга, легенда здесь представлена, действительно являются мировыми лидерами. Но за последние 5 лет вот эта вот когорта мировых лидеров поменялась кардинально. Для всех, наверное, стало удивлением новость про то, что Toshiba идет к банкротству, а компания Tesla обогнала по капитализации General Motors. Для собравшихся специалистов по форсайту это, наверное, только подтверждение наших прогнозов, но для большинства коллег это могло оказаться неожиданным. Вопрос в том, что дальше, потому что повестка, которую мы эксплуатируем уже десятилетия, связанная с новыми материалами, нанотехнологиями, интернетом вещей, похоже, устарела. А истории для нахождения новой повестки мы видим не так уж и много. И я хотел бы показать только один пример этой истории – это изменение климата. Казалось бы, настолько уже использованная и заангажированная тема, мы настолько много уже про нее говорим, так нет. Мы видим с помощью больших данных, что даже в этой истории очень много интересных моментов, например, связанных с тем, что инструменты политики, направленные на реальное управление и подстраивание под изменение климата, находятся очень далеко от семантических связей, связанных с действительно обсуждением контента по изменению климата. То есть те коллеги, которые обсуждают изменение климата, не очень говорят про эффекты в части экономики, общества или технологий. Те, кто обсуждают инструменты, не очень понимают, что находится внутри. И, конечно, форсайт, как сильнейший инструмент для выстраивания коммуникации, здесь мог бы использоваться достаточно эффективно. Вот я сосредоточился бы еще на этой картине по рынкам, потому что в конечном счете нам важно понимать, какие рынки порождаются глобальными вызовами. И здесь более 2000 рыночных обзоров, которые мы в течение 4 лет с коллегами собирали в рамках IFOR. Мы видим, что классификация даже этих рынков является нетривиальной задачей. Потому что по каким-то из этих рынков есть оценки, общий объем 32 триллиона собранной информации. По каким-то мы даже не понимаем, как классифицировать от потребностей, по географии, по технологиям. Это действительно серьезные исследовательские задачи, которые нам нужно решать вместе, и они абсолютно нетривиальны. Но даже те инструменты форсайта, которые мы используем в России, это действительно тулкит, состоящий из десятков различных инструментов, позволяет предвидеть и предугадывать те перспективные продукты и услуги, которые будут в действии. Вот этот радар основан на результатах 11-13 годов, то есть ему почти 5 лет. Он дальше вошел в прогноз научно-технологического развития Российской Федерации, утвержденный председателем правительства в 2014 году. Посмотрите, те направления, которые тогда мы вместе с 2000 экспертов предугадывали, уже сейчас вошли в нашу жизнь. Это умное сельское хозяйство, интернет вещей, протокол МТМ, это носимые устройства, это космический лифт, это исследование газогидратов, это умные батареи, умный город и далее, лекарства. То есть, если вы сейчас посмотрите повестку того, что обсуждается и в России, и в мире, то она просто идет по этому радару. Это значит, что действительно при использовании комплекса количественных, качественных методов, при умном и научно обоснованном подходе к форсайту мы можем с высокой степенью вероятности говорить о движении к фронтиру будущего. Хотя, конечно, оно является сценарным, и здесь мы обязательно должны уходить от линейной логики. Об этом я скажу отдельно. Если мы говорим про технологии, то есть, коллеги, мы идем от глобальных вызовов к рынкам и дальше к технологиям. То история здесь гораздо сложнее, чем сказать про то, что надо заниматься нанотехнологиями или биотехнологией. Это очень важно. Мы должны уходить вглубь. Это кластеры, построенные по данным научных статей и патентов по биотехнологиям. Посмотрите, они действительно разные, они связаны как с использованием, собственно, биотехнологий, так и с их применением в сельском хозяйстве, в промышленности, в ряде других отраслей и секторов. Если мы уходим вглубь, то, конечно, дальше мы можем уже выстраивать динамические портфели для управления технологическим развитием. Но без того, чтобы дальше агрегировать эти результаты на уровне высоких формулировок, мы не сможем управлять, потому что будет теряться управляемость. Поэтому история, конечно, гораздо сложнее. Как управлять такими сложностями? Мне кажется, что система научно-технологического прогнозирования, которая выстраивается в России, могла бы быть интересна коллегам из всех стран, занимающихся форсайтом. Потому что она включает 3 уровня. Национальный, где есть 4 прогноза. Прогноз научно-технологического развития, бюджетный, прогноз рисков и угроз и социально-экономического развития. Это система на отраслевом уровне и региональном. То есть национальная система форсайта, отраслевая и региональная, взаимоувязанная через система документов, конечно, может здесь быть хорошим ответом на эти вызовы. Но я хотел бы обратить ваше внимание еще на две вещи. Первое – это на базовые предпосылки, которые мы закладываем в наши форсайты и прогнозы. Почему-то это очень редко обсуждается, но для любого экономиста это ключевой момент. Это не только переход к новой технологической парадигме, это и трансформация цепочек создания добавленной стоимости под влиянием технологий. Это уже не экономика знаний, это экономика действий. Это, конечно, изменение в структуре занятости. И это не просто искусственный интеллект или роботизация, это гораздо сложнее. Это, естественно, новые образовательные модели. Мне кажется, нам нужно ответить на три ключевых вопроса. Это вопрос, уже связанный не с тем, что технологические портфели сформированы. Даже мы говорим об одном и том же. Это вопрос «когда» и «как быстро». Это не вопрос «как», это вопрос «зачем». Это вопрос, связанный в том числе с ориентацией и борьбой между технократами и, если хотите, некоторыми философскими, социально-гуманитарными направлениями. Это вопрос «кто?». Делаем ли мы ставку на гениев или смотрим на некоторые рутинные операции? Это ключевые вещи. И здесь я хотел бы поделиться некоторыми аспектами, которые мы видим со стороны российского форсайта. Мы готовы к революции в производительности. Наши многоукладные сектора с их особенностями, моногородами в том числе, которые образуют отдельные предприятия, готовы к тем прорывам, на которых мы сосредотачиваемся. Более того, нужно говорить не про отдельные прорывные проекты, нужно говорить про более серьезные и глубинные исследования, рутины, если хотите. Конечно, нельзя ориентироваться только на гениев, надо смотреть на научно обоснованные исследования. И не нужно забывать про то, что в институциональной экономике называется path dependence, зависимость от выбранного пути. Некоторые российские экономисты переводят это как эффект колеи. Осуществленные инвестиции, в том числе в результате прошлых индустрий, тянут вниз. Иногда проще построить все в гринфилде. И, может быть, это российское конкурентное преимущество – построить все в чистом поле, без каких-то сильных инвестиций. Конечно, вопрос в уровне развития культуры общества к восприятию инноваций, культуры бизнеса, воспринимает ли он новые технологии как источник конкурентоспособности, и культура управления. Действительно важно смотреть на связь поколений. Кто те люди, которые сейчас отвечают за научно-технологическое развитие, какие у них базовые системы ценностей, потому что у разных поколений есть теории про иксы, миллениумы, новое цифровое поколение, у нас разные системы ценностей. Мы готовы договариваться об этих системах ценностей, а вы нас готовы слушать. И, естественно, здесь очень важно смотреть на баланс между консерватизмом умудренных опытом и гипероптимизмом молодежи. Потому что новые технологии часто переоцениваются в эффектах сейчас и недооцениваются в эффектах потом, в прошлом, в будущем. Нам нужно сохранять институциональную память проекта. В России есть такая поговорка «новая метла по-новому метет». Это актуально для очень многих стран, потому что нам нужно соблюдать именно институциональную память. И, конечно, здесь очень важно институты. Мы готовы к новым институтам, в том числе форсайту права. Мы все функционируем в юридической сфере, но она готова к тем изменениям, которые произошли. У меня большие вопросы на эту тему. Ну и заканчивая, я хотел бы сказать, что с нашей точки зрения выстраивание форсайта на системной основе, использование последовательности от форсайта к приоритетам, к технологическим дорожным картам, к инструментам и к мониторингу, вот 5 таких составляющих, позволит сделать наши прогнозы устойчивыми, общество счастливым, а бизнес конкурентоспособным. Удастся нам это сделать или нет, мне кажется, зависит от нас. Спасибо, коллеги.
Thank you very much. I think we can